With Brexit just around the corner and Eurosceptic parties gaining momentum in the EU, French President Emmanuel Macron has outlined his grand vision of a reformed Europe. His open letter features a number of ambitious plans. Charlotte Dubinsky has more.
Well, this letter has been outlined to citizens of Europe, and it's been published in newspapers in the 28 member states of the European Union. This comes as many centrist politicians are fearing that they're not going to do as well in the forthcoming European elections, as we're seeing polls suggesting that nationalist and populist parties are likely to gain seats across Europe in those forthcoming elections. Now, Macron's outlining his vision, a renaissance of Europe as he calls it, but he also outlined that there are threats to Europe.
Never since the Second World War has Europe been so necessary, and yet never has Europe been in such a danger.
He sees that danger as being twofold. One, it's the Eurosceptic MPs, Eurosceptic politicians, people who he's described as exploiting public anger. But it's not just Eurosceptic politicians that he's pointing the fingers at. He's also pointing the fingers towards those who don't want to do anything, who want the status quo to remain as it is. He says in his letter, this is about people who would be sleepwalking towards a diminished Europe. He also talks about migration, a very sticky issue for many centrists and something that Europe has been battling now with for the last few years. And he describes the need to set out new rules for the borders of the Schengen area and also a border force of police that all of Europe works towards.
No community can create a sense of belonging if it does not have protected territorial limits. We therefore need to rethink the Schengen area. All those who want to be part of it should comply with obligations of responsibility, stringent border controls and solidarity, a single asylum policy with common acceptance and refusal rules.
One of the other things he talked about was interference and meddling, suggesting that foreign powers shouldn't be able to finance parties in Europe.
I propose the creation of a European agency for the protection of democracies to provide each EU member state with European experts to protect their election process against cyber attacks and manipulation.
So what's the reaction been? Well, across Europe, many politicians have slapped Macron on the back for outlining his vision. But here in France, there has been a lot of criticism from opposition politicians. Some describe him as being like the character Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, flip-flopping on his policies, being all about the words and not being about the substance. This is, of course, not the first time we've heard some of these ideas from Macron since he took office back in 2017. And there's been criticism of social media, of the fact that President Macron, while outlining this grand vision, this renaissance of Europe, is really struggling to control many of the things that are happening here in France. Take the Yellow Vest protests. This is an anti-government movement that's been going on now for more than 3 months. 16 consecutive Saturdays of protests that people have described at times as being some of the worst in the last 50 years here in France. And it's not just the Yellow Vest protests. We're seeing protests by students, protests by teachers, protests by workers from the medical fields, all unhappy with the reforms that Macron has been trying to push through since his election. And many people saying, if you can't sort out things in your own country, how can you then decide to outline what you think Europe should be doing in future? Some suggesting that the president is trying to bite off more than he can chew.